Despite my wild hair suggesting this segment might be some somewhat silly subject matter, I'm sad to let you all know that we're actually going to be talking about something very grim, but very fresh off the presses news-wise. You see, Arizona just had an abortion ruling in regards, well, they just had a ruling on abortion. And the ruling is not over whether or not abortion will be legal, but over whether getting an abortion and providing an abortion will be criminalized. Whether out of state or in state, whether the state will deem you a criminal for getting an abortion. And well, what conclusion do you want to bet Arizona came to today? I've got an article here, or not an article, but a news bit here that breaks it all down. It's some pretty awful news, but this is what the Republicans do. They don't make compromises. The only time Republicans are willing to compromise on any issue, certainly abortion, is rhetorically when they are trying to get into power before they are in power. Once they have that power, it is all about no compromises, doing everything exactly as the most radical of their side wants to do, with no compromises and no room for others who don't agree with it to be separate from its consequences.
I just feel like it should be out of the government's control. I just feel like we're going back in time.
I'm not for abortion, but I think it's not the place of the state to punish women for deciding to have an abortion.
It's such an archaic law created by men.
Not even Arizona Republicans. Arizona Republicans are in favor of this ruling, criminalizing women who get abortions. This is an overstep thought impossible to even many apolitical centrist types, that you would have Republicans on a statewide level criminalizing abortion for the woman who gets it.
To control women's bodies puts fear in my heart because I know that women are going to die.
Arizona citizens and voters reacting to the news that their state Supreme Court had upheld a law from 1864.
So are you guys understanding now why I went over the story from yesterday? Or not yesterday, a couple years ago, where the 10-year-old girl who was raped had to go out of state to Indiana from Ohio to get an out-of-state abortion? Was she an Arizona citizen, that 10-year-old girl would be a criminal and would be facing juvenile charges upon returning to the state for getting the rape baby aborted.
Before the state existed, from before women had the right to vote.
This is what Republicans want. This is what they dream of. Retaliation on a legal level for young girls finding justice for their rape. They've always been pro-child rape. Now they've found the perfect avenue to enforce their pro-child rape policies through law and criminal action.
That bans all abortions except those to save the life of the mother.
As before, that definition, to save the life of the mother, that wording is extremely vague, and what that actually means is it can only ever be done when the woman is actively on a, table, dying, bleeding internally from hemorrhaging, or dying of sepsis, or, another such immediately about to kill you in, 5 minutes type deal. For example, I've got a friend, and she has some cancery shit going on with her reproductive system. Not too great. Not a great thing to be having going on. She is young. So young, in fact, that it is kind of mind-blowing that she even has any type of cancer. And so the fact that doctors in her conservative-ass state refuse to provide a full hysterectomy or even a partial one, which is, they outright say, is what she needs to get or the cancer is going to get worse. They have outright told her in their state the only way that she can get her uterus out so that the cancer does not kill her is if she is actively dying of, and I quote, sepsis on the operating table. It has to be an emergency surgery to remove it. It cannot be done preemptively or as a treatment to prevent and stop cancer from spreading. So to be very clear, when they say women are going to die from this, they are very goddamn serious. Because even in the cases where it will save the mother's life, that's only in the short term. This has banned the ability for full hysterectomies to be done to prevent the spread of cancer in that state. And not only that, but outside of state, if they go and get that treatment, they may be chased down criminally. That 1864 law covers cancer and IVF legally, like legally covering it as it's okay, or covers it as in saying it's wrong, like it's illegal. Could you, like, elaborate there? This is extremely scary. Like, Arizona is going to have, like, a potential political transformation this coming election because of this. It's illegal. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, like I said before, getting cancer treatment and IVF, those are also criminalized under this bill. They're actually, like, enforcing an 1864 law that has been unenforced for a long time. They voted yes in favor of enforcing it. It is an 1864 law. The definition established IVF falls under the definition established in 1864, though.
And it's prison time for any doctor who performs one. It is one of the most severe laws in the country, and amid backlash, Republicans in the state of Arizona fell all over themselves to try to condemn the Supreme Court ruling, despite having supported similar restrictions in the recent past. That includes the disgraced ex-president who tried to distance himself from the ruling.
Damn.
That was a
disgraced ex-president. Woo! Yeah, these are Trump loyalists, and Trump is desperate now to separate himself from this. He's said that it's gone too far. The problem is, like, these are Donald Trump's constituents. Like, there's no universe in which this isn't a thing Trump is in favor of, and if Trump is in power, more of his constituents won't just do more of this. They've taken an inch. Now they're ready to take the mile.
a direct result of his handpicked Supreme Court members overturning Roe.
Mr. President, did Arizona go too far? Did Arizona go too far?
Yeah, they did, and that'll be straightened out.
Do you think a doctor should be punished who perform abortions?
I'll let that be to the states. You know, everything we're doing now is states and states' rights.
This is him going back on it, by the way. So whenever there is an unpopular policy made, Trump will say it goes too far until people forget about it and stop asking him about it. Yeah, he is falling apart, by the way. Trump is just melting. Yeah, I know. He's shiny. He's receding. Everything's fucking up for him. He's fat. But he's also getting skinnier. It's weird. It's really weird. Anyway, yeah. Basically, Trump has to go back and forth on this, going from, like, it's up to the states, because that's what, like, radical conservatives want to hear, because the states will just outright ban it and do more of this. But then whenever it happens, and nationally there is a massive uproar, even among his own, like, majority of voters, he has to play it off as something that goes too far, that he'll straighten out if they just elect him.
Really telling on himself, that last part, right? Cutting through all the denials and efforts to change the subject was State Senator Eva Birch, who made waves when she spoke on the floor of the Arizona State Legislature last month about the ordeal she was forced to endure to obtain abortion health care after finding out that her baby she was pregnant with, would not survive. Here's what she said yesterday, reminding the people of Arizona and all of us exactly.
There are a shitload of pretty well-developed pregnancies where the fetus dies and there is a corpse inside of the mother, and the mother is going to isn't able to miscarry it as with such relative ease as you could earlier on. And so it requires what is effectively a post-death abortion, where, like, they do the late, like, you know, if they do, when they very rarely do a very late pregnancy abortion, with that whole process where they, like, inject a death potion into the fetus and then they, like, cut it up and then they suck it out or whatever, like the really, like, happened 5 times ever type of abortion. They basically have to do that in order to get the dead fetus out of the mother, because many cases this just happens, like 6 months, 7 months in, the fetus dies, and that's like a something this large and approximately baby-shaped now rotting and decomposing inside of the mother, and it's big and it's applying pressure and it's a problem, now it is illegal to remove that. And it may be criminal to leave the state and do that. Now, thankfully, if you can consider this a thankfully, considering this is going to be a state-enforced thing, the women who go out of state to get abortions and these life-saving procedures will likely just have a warrant out for their arrest in Arizona and any other state that this ends up following suit. And as long as they don't go back to Arizona, they won't get arrested. Like state police and what are they called? Federal police won't go after them out of state of where they are. So they could just stay where they were, go to any other state, but they can't go back to the state they came from because a warrant will likely be out for their arrest.
Who's responsible?
For murder.
Please believe me and understand. Women will die.
Of a baby.
Please stop killing us with your arrogance. If you feel like your political party has been hijacked by radical extremists, that's because
on the upside, you can at least still be a fugitive in America after you get your illegal abortion. For now.
I am just calling out to the people of Arizona and to the people of this country to please consider your loved ones, consider the reality of the consequences of these decisions, and join us, and be with us, and vote in November. This is a hostile and inhospitable environment for people who want to have children to grow their families. This is the result of Republican political extremists. And we have to break through this. We have to do better. Please come with us. Please help us.
And it is a pleasure to introduce, joining our conversation is Arizona State Senator Eva Birch and the president and CEO of the National Women's Law Center, Fatima Goss-Graves. Basil is still with us. Madam Senator, I played some of what I'd seen you say publicly, and I just first have to ask, how do you take this epic personal tragedy, which is what any of these tragedies are for any woman who's pregnant and who has a loss or has a diagnosis? How do you find it in you to put it all out there for all of us?
Thank you so much for inviting me and for having me here today. It's such an important conversation.
I'm not an accelerationist. I'm really not. But at the same time, I've noticed a trend in the world of political messaging where you get into these stints where the Republicans are on good behavior, for a lack of a better way of saying it, where the average median voter, the average politically disaffected normie, looks at the right and sees a bunch of well-reasoned, rational, free thinkers, and they look at the left and see a bunch of raving lunatics. Gamergate was famously an era where this happened, where many moderate, centrist, politically disaffected young people were swathed into the right by the perception that the right were just fighting against the invasion of politics into their interests, which is happening once again right now. We're in Gamergate 2, as they call it. And so we're in these eras where, like, the right will be on their best behavior, and you can say, this is what the right wants to do. Look at their rhetoric. Look at their past behaviors. But without anything currently planned or anything that is of very recent, insanely bad note to point to of what the Republicans or the right stand for and what they want to do and how bad they truly are, it's very, very easy for people to deny, and just to follow with what the right wants them to do, which is to believe their euphemism. Believe that the do you remember the coiner of the term alt-right back in 2015, 2016 was Richard Spencer. He coined that term. And when that term first got popular, it was a proud label that guests on CNN, MSNBC, ABC, these big news networks like what we're watching now would call themselves as they came onto the show to discuss how the alt-right is actually just this new, young, hip generation of conservatism that's far more socially liberal, but much more focused on just, more we care about immigration and economic conservatism, but we don't care if you're gay. We don't care if you're trans. It's honestly at this point the left who have gotten far more regressive. I mean, they care so much about race. They're obsessed with identity politics. At this point, the left are the real racists. We've had sort of a switch, and that was the narrative that these alt-righters that proudly called themselves such on television would say. And then time passed, and people started to realize that alt-righters are the guys who go to rallies and carry tiki torches and chant "Jews will not replace us," and we kind of realize that's actually just another word for Nazi. And when you call someone alt-right now on the right, like when I call a conservative YouTuber alt-right now, it's literally the same as calling them a Nazi. They see it as a thought-terminating cliche or some kind of insult, or an attempt to try and deplatform them, and they get hyper defensive when they get called alt-right because it's broadly recognized as a bad thing now. So once again, I am not an accelerationist, but I think that there is a silver lining to this situation where hoping at least, and hoping only goes so far, that this stops at one state, that having a hyper-conservative pro-Trump state that's outright criminalized women doing this when they can still leave and still, unfortunately be fugitives of their state, this may be the thing that turns the tide in November. I hate to think about politics like this because these are people's rights and their lives, but fuck. We'll see. Will this be enough to potentially make Arizona go blue in November? Because if it is, then it may be worth it, ? Well, not worth it, but it's a silver lining, In hindsight, we'll look back and be like, man, I'm kind of glad we had this round in the chamber to use against Trump, Hey, Trump, why are your fans criminalizing abortion and life-saving procedures? In 2020 and 2016, certainly, that wasn't an argument that could be used against him. Now it is. And remember, abortion is one of the strongest wedge issues in all of American voting, just across the board. Immigration and abortion are the biggest wedge issues in all of American politics.
I actually was grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak about my experience. I just think that the wrong people are controlling the conversation a lot of the time.
Guns are number 3.
That they take advantage of that. These are private matters. They take advantage of that. People are grieving and are struggling and are not very likely to want to share that. I thought it was really important to break through some of the stigma that exists and to have a more honest, more comprehensive conversation about who the abortion patient is and what abortion care looks like. I was still pregnant when I made my initial speech, and I had my procedure just days later. And I wanted people to come along with me so that they could understand better. And I wanted people who maybe are curious and have questions but feel uncomfortable or awkward asking those kind of questions to have somewhere to go, something to look towards.
And what have you heard? What do people come up? Actually, you know what? Let me first, for our viewers that didn't see it, let me show our viewers that original floor speech, if you don't mind. Okay.
I don't know how many of you know this, but a few weeks ago I learned that against all odds, I am pregnant. And right now, the safest and most appropriate treatment for me, and the treatment that I choose, is abortion. But the laws that this legislature has passed has interfered with my ability to do that, along with countless others. I stand with those who have had to grapple with and navigate Arizona's restrictive laws surrounding abortion in a time when the decisions being made were complicated enough.
Something you have to understand is that half of the most radical people on this position who are against abortion unironically believe that abortion is institutionalized baby murder. Through and through, without a shadow of doubt or ability to convince them otherwise, they think that doctors are murdering babies en masse, chopping them up and taking joy in it. A lot of this is genuine mental illness. Look up the statistics for how much untreated mental illness is just out there in America, and that'll give you an idea of okay, that explains a lot about why there's a lot of conservatives that believe what they do, and say what they do. And I think it's important to remember that a lot of these people are just downright insane, and from their end of things, they are fighting against baby murderers. And on the other end of things, you've got the psychotic grifters, those that know that this whole like moralizing, we've got to save the babies argument is just bullshit. And they just want to control women. They knowledgeably, actively, in their minds, presently, know and admit they want to control women. They want to have power over women's reproductive systems as a principle.
I appreciate them. I am them.
I am them. I mean, you just almost never hear that from any public figure, and especially around these issues. What I wanted to ask you was,
I like the pin.
What have you heard in return? What? Because sometimes putting yourself out there brings back the most unexpected sort of opening up from other people, from your constituents.
That's exactly what the response has been. I've had countless emails, people sending mail here to the Senate, people sending me messages on social media and to my campaign website, just so many people coming to me and sharing their own personal stories and just feeling grateful that they feel like they now have a seat at the table. You know, it's so difficult to watch these things happen and to feel so helpless and to feel like you don't have a voice. And I'm just so grateful that I've been able to have some control over this situation. If in no other way in the messaging about what abortion care is, and to be able to again represent so many people who have been through similar circumstances and others that were sometimes much more difficult and complex.
You know, Arizona's Supreme Court is in the exact position that the United States Supreme Court is in, right? 81% of all Americans think that abortion should be between a woman and her doctor.
To be clear, 81% total Americans believe that abortion should be legal in some way. Roughly 40% of Americans believe that it should be legal with some restrictions, while 20% believe, you do the math. It's like 40 or 50% believe that it should be with some restrictions, and there's like a remaining minority of people in favor of it that believe it should just be no restrictions, legal. And the people who believe it should be legal with some restrictions, those are just useful puppets of conservatives, unfortunately, because they are kind of like, they can be convinced to vote Republican because they'll believe when Trump says, I'm not anti-abortion. Hopefully not as Trump's guys are actively criminalizing abortion in some states. Hopefully not then. And as Trump's Supreme Court Supreme Court justices are shooting down Roe v. Wade.
In Arizona, those numbers aren't too different. What can be done? I mean, the public reaction, the universally unpopular nature, even among Republicans, is clear. But what can we do for women who in 14 days will have to live under this draconian new law?
14 days till it goes into effect.
Well, I'll tell you, there are a couple of possibilities right now. The most pressing, of course, would be to pass something through the Arizona legislature. And what really needs to be said about that is that we could have done that at any point in time. We could have done this 2 years ago when abortion clinics closed down all around the state of Arizona after the overturning of Roe. We should have done this a long time ago, and we've been in session since January. We've known that this was being litigated at the Arizona Supreme Court, and it's really now too little too late, and people are scrambling to try to fix this problem. And so we could potentially do something here in the Arizona legislature to repeal that ban. Otherwise, we really are looking at November and at the ballot initiative. I'm sure that they're going to continue to work things through the lower courts. And I know our Attorney General is working very hard to try to see if there are solutions on her end. But I think that the two things that are the most pressing where people can actually have some influence are, of course, here in the legislature and writing your representatives and making phone calls and doing what you can to put pressure on the Republican legislature, since obviously all of the Democrats are supportive of this repeal. And again, just really getting involved and making sure that we get this ballot initiative across the finish line and that people come to vote in November to make sure that it passes.
Nowhere where abortion was on the ballot has it failed at the ballot box. And I wonder what you want people to know about your state and what you want people to know as Arizona becomes the next state to embark on a ballot process.
I'm going to let them speak here.
Well, I'm very hopeful, again, that we can follow in those same footsteps. I think that the most important thing for people to know is that this ballot initiative isn't the fix. You know, we really need to be electing pro-choice candidates up and down the ticket, from the presidency down to our state
Democrat
legislatures.
down ballot.
And even if we do get a short-term fix in the legislature sometime in the next 2 weeks, we have Republicans on the record for years with their voting history, with their public statements, with legislative proclamations, promising us that they're going to continue to try to erode these rights. This fight isn't over yet. And so, yes, we need to do what we can for this ballot measure, but we also need to hold our electeds accountable, and we need to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to support and promote and elect pro-choice candidates up and down the ticket in Arizona, so that this doesn't continue to happen, because it will. If we continue to have the representation in Arizona that we have now, these rights are going to continue to erode the way that they have for decades under our current Republican leadership.
Hey everyone, MSNBC.
That is a great place to end it off. Holy crap. Yeah, we have to fight back. Listen, the Republicans play a very dangerous game of having to advocate for this overwhelming, all-encompassing, unpopular, overreaching policy for their most radical, fervent supporter base that will rip them apart if they don't meet their expectations, all the while making sure not to push away the majority of people by supporting an unpopular policy. As they said before, oversimplifying the stat a little bit, roughly 80% of Americans believe that abortion should be illegal in some form. So something this overreaching that doesn't just make abortion illegal, but criminalizes women for getting it and make them fugitives of their state if they go and do it in another state where they have used their state's rights to decide it is legal. It's pretty much implying that citizens of a state are like property of that state now. Very bizarre, but I guess there will be Republicans that'll find a way to agree with this. I'm really curious what you guys have to say about this, whether you think the Attorney General or any potential legislative action will be taken that can prevent this, if anything will be done. You misspoke. You said 80% of people want abortion to be illegal. I think I said legal, and I might have enunciated like a bit of an before I said legal, and you might have heard that as an I, but I'm pretty sure I said legal. I apologize. I meant legal. Anyway, yeah, I think that if you want to protect your rights, as much as the Republicans not only want to take them away, but make you a criminal for trying to, like, act on them, maybe consider volunteering with Progressive Victory. I know I've been shilling for them for a while now and telling you guys to go volunteer and go ask if there's any work you can do for them to help get Democrats in power and get these Republicans out of office, especially in these state-level elections where this kind of stuff matters. This is the level of matters that state-level elections matter, okay? So yeah, go speak with Progressive Victory. If you're more of like a NEET and you like to stay home, they've got phone banking you can do and tons of other at-home work that you can do to help Democrats get elected. And if you like to go out and do things, oh boy, do they've got things you can do and go out and do. Canvassing, events, volunteering, all sorts of cool stuff. So go check it out. Go to the website, links in chat, links down below in the description. And of course, I want to see in the comments down below what you guys think of this whole situation, what your predictions are, what your thoughts are in general. I always love reading your comments, of course. I've been reading them a lot more lately, especially the hate comments, because they've started to get like weirdly more insane to the extent of hilarity lately. I think I might do a segment one of these days going over some like hate comments, just like reading hate comments, because they're actually hilarious at this point. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, donate, ring the bell icon, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed.